Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Pulse RE, where we give you a heartbeat in the world of real estate. I have once again gotten not one but two wonderful guests here. I have got John and Shannon Elliott of Elliott Law Firm, one of our top closing attorneys in Central Mississippi, I'd say. I mean, y'all are pretty top notch.
Shannon is, definitely.
Yeah, Shannon definitely is, yeah. Well, I wanted to say, first of all, thank you both for being here on the episode today. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I always start my episodes with getting to know you guys individually. So I run into a lot of, in the real estate world, you got a lot of odd pairs. You got your appraisers and realtors that end up married. You got lenders, realtors, and just a mishmash of all the above. But don't really run often into closing attorneys that have gotten married and have teamed up. So how did that happen? How did y'all both become same profession?
You want to take it?
Y'all got to fight over who talks now. Come on.
Yes, I'll try to keep it brief. We actually met as sophomores in high school briefly. We had a common friend. Shannon grew up in Crystal Springs. I grew up in Brandon 39047, not proper Brandon, off of Old Fannin Road before there was anything.
You're forgiven.
Yeah. And so I was, one summer, I think it was our sophomore year of high school, was in Crystal Springs visiting the son of my dad's best friend.
Okay.
He's a good friend of mine. And he had a crush on Shannon, and so that weekend, everything kind of revolved around how can we go find Shannon. And so I met her then. It was just, kind of a hello, nice to meet you kind of thing. But I remembered her because of, the big deal she was to my friend. She didn't remember me.
Hey, be honest now. Were you helping wingman?
Yeah. No, I was trying to be a good wingman.
There you go.
And so fast forward, they never dated, but they were close friends, graduated high school together, grew up together. And I was finishing up my first year of law school, and that same friend was visiting with Shannon, just catching up with her, found out she was going to be starting law school the next year. And so he said, oh, you need to talk to my friend John. And he called me and said, hey, do you remember Shannon Sojourner? Yes. He said, well, talk to her. And you would think it would be awkward, but it actually was not too bad. And she was going to be coming to the law school for an acceptance day luncheon the following week. And the school had asked me to speak at that. And I told her, so well, let's reacquaint ourselves. And, so I talked to her afterwards. Of course, she was really pretty, so I was hoping could make something work. And anyways, so yes, we dated, got married. I worked for out of law school. I worked for an attorney named David Morrow Jr., who's now a county court judge in Rankin County. Wonderful mentor, great person. I had a general practice like him. Got to try cases, even a few jury trials. And Shannon's out of law school. Her first job was with Butler Snow, and a wonderful firm. She liked working there. She did a lot of stuff with Scotty Welch, who was a well-known litigator. And then when we had our first son, she became a stay-at-home mom for a little while. And about a year or so after that, wanted to practice some, started Elliott Law Firm with the idea of being part-time.
Boy, that worked out differently.
It didn't stay part-time for long. And yeah, I think maybe did you do a refi or some closings for Trustmark? I think really enjoyed doing that.
I had worked previously for DJ Horkey, who is a closing attorney. And so I had learned how to do real estate closings with her. So anyway, that's how I kind of started doing that.
Well, it's a love story for the ages, and
sure,
we have successfully made Shannon embarrassed and blush within the first 5 minutes of this podcast.
Yes,
so
I know.
Well done, excellent. Well, we're going to have some people that are watching here that don't know the first thing about what a closing attorney is. I mean, the most that you see on attorneys for most people, at least what comes to mind for me is, the attorney standing in the road and the 18-wheeler coming at him and he smashes it with a sledgehammer. You know what I'm talking about?
Or in the courtroom.
Exactly, right.
In front of the judge.
With that said, can y'all give us a mile-high view of what it is that a closing attorney does, actually?
Well, the closing attorney gets the parties to the table and closes the deal. So we get a contract in either from the buyer or the lender if there's a lender involved, and we check title. We make sure the terms of the contract are met. We make sure we're given the lender first lien position, and we close the deal. We get the property in the buyer's name, and we get everybody paid, the realtors paid, and the lender paid, and the payoff made, and we work with all the parties to get it done.
So really, y'all are the ones that just facilitate everything.
That's right. We work with everybody involved in the transaction. Somewhat.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Very cool. And what part of the process do y'all come in? Because we I don't know if you've been on the podcast. Clearly, you've watched every single episode I've done already. So with that said, we have had a realtor, we've had a mortgage lender, we've had an insurance agent, and we've had a home inspector so far. And we've kind of broken down where they fit in and at what part of the process. What part do y'all fit into?
Well, if it's a cash deal and there's no lender involved, we'll ask the parties when they'd like to close. And then we're going to, depending on what the date is, if it's 2 months, we're not going to necessarily go ahead, order title work. But if it's pretty soon, we'll get title work ordered and we'll get going on the file right away. Sure. If there's a lender involved, which a lot of the closings, there's a lender involved, we wait until we hear from the lender. And at that point, we'd order title work from the abstractor. That's an abstract that actually goes to the courthouse, checks the title, and but that's when we get involved, is when the lender contacts us about ordering title work on the property. Gotcha.
And does the buyer, does the client at any point, do they know that you guys are doing that?
I don't know if they know. They probably don't know the exact day that the lender orders title work.
Well, and I guess I mean to say, y'all are not in direct contact with the buyer at that point.
No. Most of the time, no.
Okay.
Well, and I'll clarify.
Please do. Yeah.
Shannon and I are not.
Yeah.
But our paralegals are. They do most of the heavy lifting, and we're blessed. We have really good staff. And so our paralegals, once they open a file, they are going to get in touch with everybody they need to.
Okay.
And I tell people, when we get to the closing table, if I seem like I don't know much about the transaction, that's a good sign. Because, and real estate agents will tell you this, if they get a call from me, they're like, what's wrong now?
Yeah.
Because
like the principal's calling me, yeah. Someone tell me that. Oh gosh, I feel like it's the principal.
Because the paralegals usually won't have us reach out to anybody unless there's a problem.
Gotcha.
Title flaw, something that needs to be fixed. Doesn't mean we're not looking at a file because we do check the title work and the title commitment and things like that. But yes, we're not as hands-on on a file as our paralegals are.
Gotcha. And just for some of our maybe more inexperienced buyers, first-time home buyers, they may have never heard of what title is. They may just be thinking, oh, you're talking about Mr. or Mrs., right? What exactly goes into title? What is that?
Right. So in Mississippi, we have 2 types of title, and I hope I'm saying that correctly, but around here, anyways, the most common is what we call fee simple title. You actually own the dirt, you own the land.
It's all yours.
Yes.
Okay.
And then we also have what's called a leasehold interest. That can be 16th section land that's owned by the school board, or most commonly around here is Pearl River Valley Water Supply District, PRB property, where you have a long-term lease. Mm-hmm. And so you don't own fee simple interest, but you do have the right to the property for long term. I want to say the leases are 70 years, 60 years.
Pretty good long.
Yeah, and you pay a leasehold fee each year, an annual leasehold fee. But there's 3 kinds of deeds in Mississippi. Mm-hmm. Quit claim deed, that just means the grantor is giving the grantee whatever interest the grantor may have. Maybe no interest, could be 100% interest, or an undivided interest.
Okay.
Then you have a special warranty deed. You typically see that with properties that have been foreclosed upon and a bank is conveying it to somebody at a sale. And then, of course, the general warranty deed. That's the most common. And the warranty deed means that the grantor is warranting that there is good title to the property, that the property is being conveyed to the grantee, free and clear of any liens or encumbrances except those that are stated as exceptions in the deed.
And that typically will be like your mortgage.
Right. So if the grantor has a mortgage and we're doing the closing, then we're going to pay off that mortgage.
Gotcha.
A long time ago, long before we were attorneys, I think some loans were assumable. Mm-hmm. And so a grantor may convey a property to a grantee, not pay off the mortgage, because the grantee wanted to assume the mortgage because it had a favorable rate.
Right.
But you really don't see that anymore.
Gotcha. Yeah. No, and I can speak for lenders. Most of them, they do not like assumable loans anymore.
Yeah.
They really don't. But no, that is very, very good knowledge. And that warranty deed, that may be familiar to some people just because they know that's what they got to bring to get their water and power come. That's right. So absolutely. And with that said, I got to hand it to you both. You both have done an excellent job of setting yourselves apart. And that's part of the reason I wanted y'all on the podcast today.
Well, thank you.
Is y'all just do a phenomenal job. So I want to hear it from the horse's mouth, if you will. What sets y'all apart? What makes y'all so great at what you do?
Our staff.
We have a great staff.
It has nothing to do with y'all at all.
We have a great staff. We're blessed. We've got two great attorneys that work with me in Flowwood, great paralegals. John's mom is my receptionist, Jeanette. Everybody loves her.
She's wonderful.
She's 80 years old and she can run circles around all of us. She's precious.
Oh my goodness, she can.
And she's really wonderful. We give out T-shirts. That didn't start as a marketing idea, but it grew into one, and so now people really enjoy the T-shirts. I hope we have a good closing experience. We have a fun time at the closing table for the most part. We like to see people happy. We do closing pictures. We have a photo booth now in Madison that people are enjoying.
Very cool.
You have it.
Yes.
Flowwood
has the photo booth.
Gotcha.
We've been doing that recently, and that's been fun. And so we just, we want to provide a good service and do a good job. And so I hope that's what we've been doing and we're going to continue to do.
Yeah, I got to say that you have done that far and away exceeding expectations of that. So y'all have done great.
Thank you.
So closing day, right? That is the final day. That's where, as we say in the business, that's where our clients get to sign their lives away. What goes on, and again, this is for our less experienced buyers, what exactly goes on at closing day, and what could someone who's buying a house for the first time expect?
I love it when we have first-time home buyers.
You're in good company. I do too.
They're excited.
They're really fun.
They're fun, yeah.
Yes. Sometimes they're nervous, but usually they're more excited than they are nervous.
Well, I hate to say it, but they're almost ready to be done.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You want to take it or me?
It doesn't matter. You go ahead.
Yeah. So let's just say it's a closing where everybody comes.
Yeah.
The buyer and the seller.
Absolutely.
Because sometimes sellers do come sign early, or they're out of state, or what have you. But everybody comes to the closing. Well, we're going to have our documentation ready. We've got the settlement statement that breaks down how the money plays out. Mm-hmm. If it's a first-time home buyer, there's probably a loan. So we got the lender documents, we've got the promissory note, the deed of trust that pledges the property as collateral.
Mm-hmm. Letter.
First payment letter, and then of course other forms as well for them to sign. And so we'll have the buyer on one side, the seller on one side. Most of the time they have real estate agents representing them, and so we'll just at the closing table we're going to get everything signed. We're going to get the deal done, and we're going to give everybody checks or keys. Mm-hmm. And so the real estate agents, they have some documents that they must have signed, that the real estate commission requires, such as the seller's going to sign the property condition disclosure.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so we'll have the seller sign everything, settlement statement, the deed, the warranty deed. We'll have the buyer sign their loan documents and everything, and then that's it. We're going to give the seller their check. We're going to give everybody copies of what they need. And then it's not finished at that point. We still have to record documents. We have to notarize a lot of documents. We have to get a closing package back to the lender in a timely manner.
So a lot happens behind the scenes.
Behind the scenes, yeah.
Okay.
And then after the warranty deed and the deed of trust are recorded, then we're at a minimum issuing a lender's title insurance policy. Most of the time people do purchase an owner's title insurance policy.
And we are going to talk about that, by the way.
And so if they do, we issue that as well.
Gotcha. Very good. And I mean, it sounds like a lot. It sounds like a lot is happening. So, and with our clients, is that like taking a full day? Like, should someone like block off a whole day to be signing paperwork and everything, or how long does that typically take?
They're usually pleasantly surprised that it doesn't take that long.
30 minutes or less.
30 minutes or less. You heard it here first. Take that to the bank. No, I'm just kidding. Well, you did mention something very, very important, was the owner's title policy. And Shannon, I'll ask you, what is that, and is it a requirement? Do you have to have it?
It's not a requirement.
Okay.
So you don't have to have it, but we recommend that you get that. And it's a policy that protects your equity as the homeowner or the landowner. It protects your equity in the property. So if there's anything that comes up after closing that causes you a title problem, for the most part, you would be covered.
So, like, for example, if I bought a home today and then tomorrow I get a knock on my door from just a random person, never met them before in my life, and they say, you don't actually own this property, I own it. Is that where that would come into play? Would that help me in that case?
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay. And I assume there's more that goes into that as well. It's not just weird scenarios with random people knocking on your door. Is there other scenarios like more common that would a policy like that would protect you?
Yes. So if you are, I'm sorry, this telemarketers called me. They
are just the worst.
At the same time every day, twice in a row. So if you had, let's say, a lien or a judgment showed up on the property that you had purchased, or there was an unreleased deed of trust or some kind of money that was owed. Or
that has nothing to do with
that has nothing to
you
do
as the
with
buyer.
You. If you've got a policy and you as the homeowner is you're brought into a lawsuit because of this, your attorney fees would be covered. If you had to bring suit against somebody for whatever issue was going on, then you would be provided an attorney for that as well if you had the owner's policy. So whatever problem that you would have with the title from the past, if there was some fraud in the chain of title that nobody knew about at the time of closing and it crept up and caused you a problem.
Gotcha.
You to have that policy, it's a one-time fee that you pay, and then that policy covers you. So it could be something 10 years down the road, you're living in the house, you've been in the house, you think everything's fine, and then something happens all of a sudden.
But even 10 years from now,
that policy is still going to protect your
equity.
And
I'm not paying a subsequent charge every year or anything for it?
No, you're not paying, you're just paying
one time. That's pretty great.
Yeah.
That doesn't seem like there's any reason not to get one of those, actually.
No way, and if you get it at the same time as you get the lender's policy,
you
get what they call a simultaneous issue rate, and so it's discounted substantially.
Even better.
Yeah.
Even better.
Yes.
Well, with that said, and I assume that you guys, as well as the lenders you work with, explain this very thoroughly to their clients every time, right?
We hope.
We hope. Yeah, that's a pretty good answer.
Yeah, we hope.
But with that said, I do want to transition that into, it's not like most people are going to be buying houses every single day. A lot of times, it's their biggest purchase that they're going to make in their life, and people do it only a handful of times in their lifetime. Most people. So with that said, when you're going in and dealing with a closing attorney, if you're one of those people that's not doing it all the time, then you're not going to know what a good one and a bad one are. You're going to be pretty ignorant to what makes for a good one or a bad attorney. So just to ask you, and I'll leave it as open as you'd like it to be, what qualities would you say, and we can even say top 3 qualities on each side, what makes a good closing attorney versus a bad closing attorney? I know it's difficult because y'all both have only good qualities.
I think a good closing attorney or a good closing attorney's office is going to have good communication throughout the process up until closing day, because you're working together with the parties, with the agents, trying to get the deal to the table. Mm-hmm. And so you want to have good communication. So I think that's important. So if you work, if you're working with an office that you can't ever get a response from, that's frustrating and that's not good. So I would say good communication's key, and that's good communication's key in any business, really.
Oh, I couldn't agree more.
If you're doing a loan for somebody, that person, when they call you, they want to hear back from you in a timely manner.
We've talked with the realtor, the lender, every person we've interviewed to this point. I ask them generally the same question of what makes a good version of you. Every time. First answer is always communication. Every time.
And then we want to do things right. If there's a title problem, we want to fix the problem so we can get the deal to the table and get it closed. So we want to figure out how we can handle whatever we've got to handle in the most efficient way to get it done and get it closed and give the buyer good marketable title. So I would say that that's important. communication, like we've already spoken about, and then what would the third one be? I would think a nice closing experience once you get to the office. It is nice where you sit down and you enjoy each other and have good conversation and get it done promptly and and have a good experience, and also understand what you're doing. You want your buyers and your sellers, you want everybody to understand everything that's happening.
And we need to have a photo booth and T-shirts after too.
That's right. And you want to get to see Rosie, the closing dog.
So exactly right.
Forgot to mention her earlier.
Exactly right. I always got to shout out Rosie.
Shout out to Rosie.
Is there anything, and I'll keep this as brief as you'd like it to be, but is there anything that you would point to that says, hey, maybe this is not the closing attorney for you? I know that's a tougher question to ask, but
yeah, that's harder to answer, just because we don't deal with other closing offices in the capacity of where we're the customer.
Certainly.
But I will say, really, everybody around here has a good reputation. We do have to work with other closing offices, not necessarily on a closing per se, but maybe something shows up in our title work that would have been addressed at the previous closing. And so we have to contact that closing office to get a little more information. And thankfully, really, everybody around here, they're kind. They understand we have to work together and help each other and stuff like that. So, yeah,
Central Mississippi is very blessed with our closing attorneys out here. We really are. None come to mind that I would say are bad closing attorneys by any means. But I do have a lot of viewers that are going to be watching that are outside of state lines, and unfortunately are going to be in denser population areas where it is just a numbers game. You're going to come across a bad attorney. Yeah, it's just going to happen. And with that said, I do want to remind our viewers that they're going to be available to discuss this with. So if you're outside of state lines and you do not get the blessing of getting to sit down at the closing table with either of these two, they're available. If you need a third set of eyes on something, or you need to make sure that the closing attorney you are working with is doing things the correct way, they will be available. We'll have their contact information in the description below so that you can reach out to them and whatever real estate attorney legal questions you may have, they will be able to answer for you. Well, we've gotten through quite a lot already, I'd say. But I do love to ask. It's one of my favorite questions to ask. You guys have been doing this for how long now? How long have y'all been in real estate closings?
20 years.
Shannon started the firm in 2004.
20 plus years. Okay. I am certain within those 20 plus years you have seen some wild things. I am almost dead certain about that. So my ask is, what is the craziest or most outlandish story that y'all have from y'all's time in real estate, the legal real estate world?
Well, I've got my story,
but
do you?
We'll take both.
Your story, I think it's what I'm thinking.
Okay.
I'll let you.
So we opened this office in Madison in 2018, and I think it was within a few months of opening the office, we handled a cash closing. The reputable real estate agents on both sides. They were really, really good agents on both sides. And the buyer, so it's, everything's rocking along just fine.
Okay.
On the day of closing, it's a husband and wife. And the wife's oblivious to the problem that is about to transpire. Okay. She comes in and signs everything. Sweet lady. It's that's fine. The husband, though, keeps dragging his feet coming to closing. He's out of town. The dog ate his homework. All of that. Just excuse. Okay. But typically, if someone's going to defraud you, they're not going to do it in person, and
they're leaving town. And they're getting out of Dodge.
And they usually don't want to even talk on the phone. This guy. We kept delaying him signing because of the various delays that he had. And finally, I told him, look, it's Friday. I'm ready to go home.
Mm-hmm.
Just come to my house. You can sign the documents there.
Whenever you get in town.
When you get back in town.
Yeah.
And so that's what he did. He came to my personal residence.
So he showed up.
Signed the documents and gave me his certified check, which, I mean, it was a real check.
Okay, all right.
It looked like what a certified check should look like. And so, you know, I give him his copy of the deed, and we, you know, deposit the check, and our bank, you know, pretty promptly, I say promptly, I mean, I think it was within a couple of days, but thankfully we had not recorded the deed yet. They contacted us and said, hey, this check is fraudulent. So,
just what you want to hear.
Yes, and so the way the rules of professional conduct are written for attorneys is that we have to cover it with our own funds, and I'm skipping some details about us, you know, going to meet with the police department, reporting, and all of that. But needless to say, the guy did not have the money, and
and then he hid from us.
So
tried, I imagine.
So yeah, I do remember talking to him on the phone at one point, and he was mad at me.
Us. It was kind of weird because normally wouldn't.
They don't come back to you.
They don't come back, but he kept telling us, "I've got the money. I'm bringing it tomorrow.
He was mad that I went to the police, but anyhow, so we ended up buying this house.
Okay.
And we ended up we put some money into it, you know. Fixed the house up a little bit, sold it, lost money, but not as bad as what I thought it was going to be.
Right.
But people, especially other closing attorneys, they would ask, "Hey, what would you do differently?" And the response is nothing.
Yeah.
You can't steal a house. You know, had I been selling him $100,000 Mercedes Benz, yes, he could drive it off. He could ship it to China and sell it. I mean, he could possibly get away with that.
He can move it around, yeah.
But with a house,
that's stuck.
You're not uprooting it and moving it. And so that one for me was the craziest one. And we've had a lot of them, but I probably remember that one just because I had to stroke a really big check to cover it.
Well, no kidding.
So you remember those?
Yeah.
And yes.
Did this end with a happily ever after? Did the guy get caught? And
it wasn't a happily ever after
for him.
Yeah,
well,
not for him
or his wife.
And that's the worst part because I think you said that she was oblivious to the whole thing.
Yeah, so no,
oh my goodness.
She divorced him. He went to jail for a little while, not long, but about a month, and he never paid us back our losses.
I don't imagine he did.
But he did get convicted of a felony.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
crazy?
pretty wild.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know that's a little bit on a bit bigger of a scale, but is fraud something that y'all are having to interact with daily?
Yes.
Really?
Yes,
okay.
Yes.
Well, maybe not daily, but weekly, yes.
Often?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Where do y'all typically see this occur in y'all's world?
What the hacker will do or the fraudster will do is they will hack into an email.
Okay.
Between the closing office and a lot of times the agent, the real estate agent.
Gotcha. Okay.
And they get the buyer's information that way, and then they will email the buyer pretending to be our office or the realtor and give them fraudulent wiring instructions.
That's how, okay, the wiring instructions is where they get them. Because
Yes.
as far as I understand, wires are not exactly the most traceable or secure methods of getting money from one place to the other, potentially.
Well, I think it's a good way to send money. You just got to make sure your wiring instructions are correct.
Got to make sure the destination's right.
That's
Got
right.
it.
So
okay.
when you want me to wire your funds as the seller, I'm going to either get that information from you in person because you're sitting in my office and you've written it down for me. And
right.
I'm going to go wire it, and it's going to hit most of the time that same day. And that's what's nice about getting your funds that way versus a check. A lot of times the bank will put a hold on your proceeds checks. So,
but not on a wire.
But
That's
not
more...
on a wire. It
okay.
hits it hits that same day if it's wired in time. And then also, if you are a seller and you're not coming to closing, but you sent documents back, when we get those documents back, we're going to look at your wiring instructions, and then we're also going to call you to verify that they're correct.
Got so a couple more steps.
It seems like we're really we're really kind of insane about this, but why we're doing this is because there's just so much fraud out there. We want to make sure that we've got the correct the correct wiring
So
instructions.
there is some method behind the madness.
Yes, there's a method behind the madness.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, we are coming to an end of our time today, and again, I just want to thank you both so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having
us. Thank you.
And thank you also for letting us do the podcast here in your space in Elliott Law Firm, as you can see in the big beautiful letters up there. One thing I love to do for my guests before we sign off for the episode is just to let you guys have the floor just for a minute, just to give any shout outs, any closing remarks, any last final thoughts on being a closing attorney, anything at all. The floor is yours.
Gosh. Hey, John.
Put you on the spot.
Okay, so shout out. I'll give a shout out to our paralegal Mindy. Last week, she discovered a transaction we were asked to handle that had seller impersonation fraud. And
Wow.
So she had a funny feeling about it, and she tracked down through public records contact information for the owners of the property, called, sent a letter, and I think it was the letter they responded to, not the voicemail she left. But sure enough, they had no idea their property was listed for sale or under contract.
So that was just from the very start something happened.
Right. So she averted a disaster there. So we'll give Mindy a shout out.
No kidding. Way to go, Mindy. Yeah. Anything from you, Miss Shannon?
Well, on that, on the same lines, that's also why now, when someone's not coming to closing, we set up a notary most of the time with BankServe, because they're a notary
Right.
service that services, I think, the whole United States. And so that is because more fraud is happening, and we want to make sure, as if you're the buyer, that the seller is really the seller that's selling to you. So
Right.
if they're not at the closing table, we want to make sure we're not giving you a deed from an imposter. So.
Right.
Yeah. So I just want to give a shout out. We work with really so many great lenders, local lenders and agents. And I just appreciate you guys, sending us business and allowing us to help your clients.
Well, I think
Thank you.
I can speak on behalf of most everyone that interacts with y'all that y'all make it so easy. Y'all
Oh,
really
good.
do.
Thank you.
And again, cannot say enough kind things about them, but don't take my word for it, as they used to say on the Reading Rainbow. Go take a look at their reviews. Go take a look at what they've done in the past. They are truly incredible, and they are stellar examples of what great closing attorneys ought to be. With that said, that will bring us to a close of our episode. Again, we'll have their contact information below so you can reach out to them. But thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Pulse RE, where we give you a heartbeat on the world of real estate.